Excellencies, dear colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to who is with us online or is now watching the video of this official virtual side event to the United Nations Ocean Conference ongoing in Lisbon. This side event is organized by Break Free from Plastic and the European Environmental Bureau in partnership with the Geneva Bit Plastic Pollution Dialogues. This is the second session of the Geneva Bit Plastic Pollution Dialogues that are ongoing in the context of the UNO Ocean Conference. These dialogues are organized by the Geneva Environment Network in collaboration with the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention Secretariat, the Center for International Environmental Law, the Global Governance Center at the Graduate Institute, IUCN, Norway, Switzerland, the Forum on Trade, Environment, and the SDGs, and the University of Geneva. These dialogues have kept the international community engaged on this topic since the end of 2020 and will continue until the conclusion of the Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee to establish a binding agreement to end plastic pollution. We warmly thank Break Free from Plastic for proposing the event convened today. We hope you enjoyed watching the very informative documentary, The Plastic Myth, on which the discussion we are having today is based. We have indeed a plastic problem that is now being addressed by the international community. And before I hand over to the moderator of this session, let me mention that you can raise your questions by using the Q&A box, which we will address in the Q&A session of this event. The summary and the video of this event will be available online as usual on the link that has been shared by my colleagues. We have a translation tool accessible at the bottom left of the screen and 3 interpreters online with us for Indonesian and Spanish, accessible by clicking the little globe at the bottom left of the screen. To chair and moderate this event, it's my great pleasure to turn to Pui Wong, Waste Trade Coordinator at Break Free from Plastic Asia Pacific. Pui, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Diana. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon to people in Lisbon. Good evening to all of us here in Asia, and a very good morning to people from the US. We have one panelist from the US. Thank you everyone for joining us here today. My name is Pui Yi. I am the Waste Trade Project Coordinator from Break Free from Plastic Asia Pacific. Thank you, Geneva Environment Network, for hosting us. And let's just jump into it. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of background for those of you who are not familiar with Break Free from Plastics. We are a movement of more than 2,500 organizations and 11,000 individuals. You can easily search Break Free from Plastic and access our website for more information. We came together. We were a bunch of NGOs who have been working in areas of the environment, all sorts of different issues for many years, and we came together about 5 years ago in 2016 because the plastic pollution crisis is increasingly serious, and we hope to put forth real solutions, as you can see in the title of our panel today, of our side event today, and we strongly advocate towards phasing out of plastics completely. We work strongly with the Basel Convention mechanisms, and also our members are also involved in discussions towards the Global Plastics Treaty. We aim to tackle plastic pollution throughout the entire life cycle, from resource extraction, fossil fuels, all the way until waste management, waste disposal. And we have put together a campaign in conjunction with this UN Ocean Conference. And our campaign is called Stop Shipping Plastic Waste. Next slide, please. And why stop shipping plastic waste? All the reasons are listed in this website over here. If you scan the QR code, you can access the petition. We truly believe that the waste trade is a big problem that none of us are talking enough about. We are at a conference to talk about marine litter. I don't see anyone else mentioning the waste trade. Yesterday, during the dialogue on addressing marine pollution, Bahrain mentioned that they banned the import of plastic waste, and that's great. But how many other countries completely ban the import of plastic waste? Why is it important to ban the import and export of plastic waste? We hope this panel will enlighten all of us further. This Stop Shipping Plastic Waste campaign was started in 2021 actually by Basel Action Network and the Last Beach Cleanup, and it has been endorsed by 52 organizations worldwide. Feel free to check out this petition. This petition aims at shipping companies, but we also have a lot of engagement with governments on why we need to end these plastic waste exports. And now in this panel, we hope to speak to all participants here, governments, private sector, consumers, everyone, and to outline why it's important to stop the plastic waste trade, and when we're open to dialogue. Next. For our opening remarks, we have Patricia Heidegger, Director of Global Policies and Sustainability. EEB, European Environmental Bureau, is one of our co-hosts and co-organizers for this panel. And next slide, please. This is some background on Patricia. Patricia is the director, as mentioned just now, of EEB, and she works in areas of SDGs, and with the EU, she works on environmental rights and transformation of our economic system. That's exactly what we need to talk about, economic transformation. And also, of course, politics. She has been working in this area for 15 years, mainly with NGOs in Europe and Asia, and she has led a global campaign calling out the dumping of toxic end-of-life ships and oil platforms on coastal areas in Southeast Asia. So another important topic on waste. Now, may I pass the floor to Patricia for her opening remarks.
Thanks so much, and well, thank you to all of the colleagues from Break Free from Plastics around the globe for making this really important side event happen. So indeed, it's really time to call out the myth of plastic recycling, to put an end to trading plastic waste around the world, and to curb the source of marine plastic, really where it starts. So the documentary, The Recycling Myth, really exposes that our Western recycling systems are defunct when it comes to plastic waste. They're linked to regional and global criminal plastic waste trade, which results in dumping and in burning of plastic waste, and ultimately in plastic and microplastic pollution of river and oceans and other environments. Research has clearly shown that there is a significant link between the global trade in plastic waste and the impact on marine environments. The University of Ireland found that 31% of plastic waste exported from Europe to Asia may not be recycled, and that nearly a fourth of it is likely to actually end up in the oceans. So one question that is raised in the documentary really says it all. If recycling is really the solution, why is the world pumping out more virgin plastic than ever before? So as we all know, the amount of plastic production has been growing year by year. To calm us down, we are being promised that plastic is being recycled. And we all know that the reality is that a lot of plastic is not recyclable, or it's just easier to burn or dump it. So this is definitely not the sustainable circular economy that we want. It's an extension of the toxic trade between richer and weaker economies that we've been witnessing for decades. The waste importing countries all have a common threat. All of them are either located in the global south or in poverty pockets within richer regions. And none of them have an effective waste management infrastructure to deal with their own waste, not even talking about the waste that we as richer economies are dumping on them. So we have seen this happening in many forms. We've seen the dumping of chemical waste and e-waste. We've seen end-of-life cars, ships and oil platforms dumped in poorer countries. And the trade in plastic waste is another add-on. So in 2019, 225 containers per day of plastic waste were estimated to be shipped from the US alone to countries with poor waste management. So there's only one country in a day, and plastic production since then has been increasing. So this is definitely waste colonialism. It benefits a few. It has horrendous impacts on local communities, on health, and our marine and terrestrial environments. So it's a question of global justice and of environmental justice, not only a technical question of waste management. Ending plastic exports and ensuring local solutions to waste management is important to reduce these risks, the risks of plastic and microplastic pollution in rivers, in oceans, and in all other environments. So we definitely need better laws that restrict the global waste trade, the plastic waste trade. We need to close the legal loopholes. We need shipping companies to stop being complicit with the plastic trade. And we need to regulate to drastically reduce plastic production and to move towards zero waste models so we can end marine pollution. And I'd just like to say a few words from a European perspective. So in 2021, the export of waste from the European Union to other non-EU countries reached all-time highs. According to statistics, official statistics from Eurostat, so a total of 33 million tons were exported, an increase of 77% since 2004. So we see a constant increase in the amount of waste produced in Europe and also in the amount of waste exported. Now, obviously, this is a mix of all kinds of materials, waste materials being exported, including plastic. And also, intra-European waste trade is a problem from richer to weaker states with no sufficient waste management capacity, as the documentary clearly shows. So we have seen last year a revision of the European waste shipment regulation, which has improved the rules and regulations on waste exports, but we definitely need to do more to reduce the amount and also to mitigate the consequences of European waste exports. We definitely have to firm up the fact that we cannot let the argument of reuse and recycle open up legal loopholes. In Europe, we need to make sure that we reuse and recycle our own waste as close as possible to the source. So no waste, especially plastic waste, should be shipped to non-EU countries, and especially not where there's no prior scrutiny whether those countries have equivalent environmentally sound waste management standards in place. So the EU needs to better address the possible confusion between waste and reuse. We also need to close all loopholes between using fake reuse statutes to illegally export waste, which is still happening. This is still a blind spot also in the EU. And a final last blind spot is that even where we export products for reuse to receiving countries, but if the extended producer responsibility schemes that we have do not travel with the product, then they make no sense. And finally, we also need public traceability of waste trade. No waste should ever be shipped, whether that's within our region or internationally, without having this journey and the relevant shipment actors documented and this information publicly available. No shipment should be allowed if full traceability cannot be ensured. So just to sum it up, waste trade is not just a technical problem about improving waste management. It's a human rights issue. It's a question of environmental justice. And I'm really curious to listen to the other speakers and to learn how we can ensure rights-based solutions to stop the trade of plastic waste. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Patricia, for your very insightful speech. I like especially what you mentioned about how it's about environmental justice. Recently, I was at Basel Convention meetings, and one of the country delegates, I won't say which country, when I told him that we are advocating for a stop to waste trade, he asked me, then what will we do with our waste? What will importing countries do with your waste? That's the question I would like to ask him in return. And let's see if our panelists can give us a more insightful rebuttal to that sort of question moving forward. And now we will go into the panel discussion proper. We have 5 panelists, 5 speakers. 2 of them are from importing countries, and 3 of them are from exporting countries. I myself, I'm from Malaysia, and we were the top plastic waste importer in 2018 when China closed its borders because we have close ties with Chinese businessmen. Firstly, we have Dr. Sedat Gundunggu, and he is an associate professor at the Çukurova University in Turkey. There's a new name now. And Sedat is a marine biologist. He studies microplastics, and his main research topics at the moment are micro and macroplastics in aquatic environments. And he has also done a lot of work, very, very important and good work, in raising awareness and documenting the impacts of the waste trade in Turkey. I will go through all the introductions for the panelists first before we open the space for our speakers to speak. Each will have 5 minutes to speak, and then we will have a Q&A. Okay, so then our second speaker will be, we'll go to Asia. From Turkey, we'll go to Asia. We have Dr. Daru Setiorini. She is based in Indonesia. She founded Ecoton, an NGO that does very good work with grassroots communities, raising awareness about plastics. They also do research on microplastics as well, and also documented and raised awareness about waste trade issues, both paper and plastic waste. So I'll leave it to Daru to explain more about the unique experience faced by Indonesia. And then following from that, we will move on to our third speaker, Jane Bremer from Australia. It's very late there now, but she's here with us. She's with the National Toxics Network, and she has done work also on waste trade. She's from a waste exporting country, and she has done a lot of work trying to stop these waste exports from coming to Malaysia and Indonesia. So we're very happy to have her here with us. Sorry, next slide, please. Yes, so this is Jane's, a little bit about Jane's background, and she also works on zero waste models. So what are zero waste models? Is that the real solution that we're looking for? You can ask Jane later. Okay, and then next we will move on to the US. We have Jen with us. We're early there now. Jen is an engineer, and she's a founder of the Last Beach Cleanup. I love the name of this organization, the Last Beach Cleanup. We can speak more on that later. Jen has experience working in 45 different countries across various industries, and she's a data expert. She can crunch trade data and give us all sorts of trends in very short time. And last but not least, we have a very interesting guest with us. We have the filmmaker of the recycling myth. Please feel free to ask him any questions you might have about the research and the process of creating this film. Next slide. Yes, so Benedict Vermter is the journalist, author, and filmmaker now, who gave us that very interesting film. So now, thanks, Benedict. Briefly, for those participants who have not watched The Recycling Myth, it is a documentary that traces the plastic waste from exporting countries to importing countries to see what happens to the plastic and who are the different players involved. And as we go along throughout this panel, we will screen 2 video clips from the documentary, and I hope that those 2 snippets, as well as the discussions, will make you want to go back and watch the full film. Okay, now I will pass the floor to Dr. Sedat Gundunggu, and I would like to ask him, so Sedat has been working on waste trade issues for a long time, impacted him directly. I would like to ask Sedat, what is the situation in Turkey? You are a microplastics researcher, you're a lecturer. How did you stumble upon this problem? What did you see? What happened?
Hi everyone, thank you for introducing me. Well, very good question. Mentioning where I started to follow this issue, it can go back to the 2016 because I was started to work on microplastic pollution at the northeastern Mediterranean coast of Turkey. We have really big microplastic pollution problem in the Turkish coast because of the there is no effective waste management, but this is only one side of the reason. There were also another side of the problem that we weren't able to make connection between this pollution to the waste rate at that time. During our research, my research, I just realized that there are some specifically shredded plastics distributed in the coasts and the surface water of the Mediterranean Sea. And then I decided to follow the trace. Follow the path to find the source. Where all these plastics come from. Then I follow the irrigation canals because the city that I live and my university located is a very large agricultural production plain, and there are too many big, large irrigation canals, and there's a canal and an irrigation network that collect all this water, and then this canals connected to the Mediterranean Sea, and also there are two large river, which is most polluted river in the Mediterranean. Two of the most polluted river in Mediterranean Sea. Then we decided to go on this rivers and canals to find where is this microplastic come from, because there were agricultural plastic films, using for greenhouse production, and also there were some other kind of microplastics originated from packaging industry or industrial application, but we didn't know that the number of the recycling facilities located around this two river. And then during that journey, we found some illegal dumping grounds, and there were billions of microplastics just dumped, and then all this microplastics going in the river and the canals, and then going to the Mediterranean Sea. And at that time, we found some specific places, and then we decided to make a map of these illegal dumping grounds, and we found mostly those dumping grounds close to the rivers and canals. Those river and canals used for agricultural irrigation, and then we found some very bad scan. The situation, because some of the dumping grounds also burn, and some of them includes package without any further treatment, like just dumped because of the most of the packages that Turkey import are not recyclable. And then we realized some flags, not Turkish one, the British, UK flag and other countries in Europe. And also some of the recycling plants just dumping their, process waste as kind of microplastic pollution to those rivers and canals. So that's why these two rivers are the most polluted river in terms of microplastic pollution. Just think about Turkey imports plastic waste more than its own collected waste in national scale. So most of the imported plastics arrives to the Adana, in my city that I work. So this two river just pass in this city, and then we can make the connection. You can also easily find this foreign labeled packets in the coastal area of the city.
So the waste gets dumped at near rivers and irrigation canals, spreading microplastics across agricultural fields as well.
Yeah, as I know from the landowner, they are talking about this microplastics even clogging this irrigation pipes, because so much microplastic dumping to the rivers and canals from those recycling facilities, and most of them are imported and operating illegally, and also the imported plastic waste are not really high quality. Even it can be high quality, it does not mean that it is really recyclable. So then all this agricultural production based on this dirty water, and then you can realize how this plastic waste import feeds this this pollution.
And this broken system, yeah. Okay, thank you, Sadat. When listening to what Sadat said and comparing it to what I've seen in Malaysia, a question that I always think about is how do people feel when this waste go to their country? Now we'll have a small snippet. We'll play a small snippet from the film, and you can see how Nina, a young girl, feels about plastic waste in her country.
Ya, kalau pohon ini bisa bicara ya, dia pastinya sekarang sudah menangis. Soalnya akar-akar yang dia gunakan seharusnya untuk bernafas dengan lega menghirup udara, dia jadi nggak bisa. Dia jadi sesak karena dicekik oleh sampah plastik. Tapi saya pernah melihat foto waktu saya masih kecil, waktu umur 5 lah kira-kira. Sampahnya belum separah ini, nggak terlalu penuh gitu ya. Masih terlihat kalau pasir-pasirnya pasir putih gitu.
Here in Indonesia, there is no widespread recycling or waste management system. But for the world's biggest packaging brands, this is a new growth market.
Ya, Nilo juga dari Nestle. Real Mentos.
Activists like Nina are left to try and clean up the mess. It's a losing battle. Global plastic production is due to double in the next 20 years. We've come to Singapore. Here, vast petrochemical facilities are being built to produce plastic and keep up with the soaring demand from the developing world.
Yes. Okay, so we just watched a video about Nina, and it talks about dismal waste management in the country, and also the ever-expanding production of more and more plastics. What are these two? How is these two issues related to the waste trade? I'm going to pose this difficult question to Daru. So we're talking about the waste trade, waste exports. How is waste exports linked to poor domestic waste management? So Nina is walking by the mangroves. She's talking about bad waste management in Indonesia. How is it related to the exports of waste to Indonesia? Could you share with us your experience?
Yes. Thank you, So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am Darus Diorini. We have been around in wetlands conservation and fighting for environmental justice for more than 20 years. So today we discuss about how plastic waste shipment undermine real solution to ocean plastic pollution. And Indonesia is blamed as the second largest contributors of plastic waste leakage into the world ocean. It could be true because waste management service in Indonesia only covers 30% of the total population, and the rivers has been used as the longest trash dumps that will release plastic leakage to the sea and the world ocean. So we know from the documentary Recycling Myth that plastic recycling is a hoax. The truth is plastic recycling is very polluting and very expensive. And only 9% of total global plastic produced is being recycled. And related with the plastic waste trade, we know that people in the rich countries produce more plastic trash per capita, and they try to keep their country clean by shipping their plastic trash in the guise of recycling and circular economy. And they said it's good for the economy of people in the destination countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, India, Thailand, and so on. And plastic waste in Indonesia also shipped inside the waste paper bill. So not only in the container as the plastic scrap or plastic waste, but it's also smuggled inside the paper bills. So every year, Indonesia paper mills import more than 3 million tons of waste paper mixed with plastic from Italy, UK, US, Netherlands, Australia, or New Zealand. And in my area, there are at least 12 paper mills located on the banks of Brantas River. And this river supplies drinking water for more than 15 million people. So the waste paper that contaminate with plastic feed the grinding pulping machine and wash with a lot of water. And this will release microplastic and plastic chemicals in their wastewater. The paper mills are located far in the upstream in Malang, and in the downstream there are also more paper mills like in Mojokerto, Gresik, Sidoarjo, Surabaya that adding more plastic release into Madura Strait of East Java. So this plastic waste import in the paper bills contribute to the plastic waste leakage to our ocean. And we found microplastic in all of the wastewater samples from the paper mills, river waters, in the seafood, in the seawater, and even in human feces from the Brantas Basin. So the imported paper bills also could contain up to 30% of the plastic contaminant. That's why in the facility of the paper mills, they have to provide landfill area to dump their plastic scrap. The biggest landfill can be seen in Banten, West Java at Indah Kiat paper mills with total area of 20 hectares and 10-meter height of imported plastic scrap piles. So it's really, really big area of illegal landfill in the facility of the paper mill. That's the situation from my experience. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Daru, for sharing. So the interesting thing about Indonesia is that the plastic scraps come from paper exports. Yeah, and it's clearly contributing to microplastic pollution in Indonesia's rivers, and which will eventually lead to the ocean. So we have just listened to two examples from importing countries about how exported waste has created pollution in their countries, polluting the water, the soil, and even the air through burning. But it's very easy to blame developing countries for poor waste management and causing marine pollution. It's very easy to blame exporting countries for using so much plastics and sending it to our countries. Let's listen to someone from an exporting country, someone from Australia. Let's go to our third speaker, Jane. And my question for Jane is, what do you think about the plastic waste trade, waste exports? If you feel like it should be stopped, why? why should it be stopped? I mean, it helps the circular economy, it sends plastics to places where it can be recycled in a more cost-effective manner. So why should we stop plastic waste exports? And what have you done in your country to achieve this?
Thank you for the question. So speaking I'm speaking to you from Bolu, which is the land of the Whadjuk Noongar people here in Perth, Western Australia. I want to start by acknowledging and thanking Patricia for raising the issue of waste colonialism. And I just want to take that one step further and suggest that we actually need to, when we're considering the global crisis that is plastic pollution and contamination of our entire planet, is that we really need to go further and decolonise our materials production systems, because the inherent problem with the waste trade is that we're exporting materials that are often highly toxic and hazardous inherently. So plastic, as we know, is a fossil fuel-based material. It contains many chemicals, and the industry themselves classifies that nearly 25% of the chemicals involved in plastics manufacture are classified hazardous. It's the inherent issues of plastic production, its manufacture, its use, its disposal and export is a very complex and chemically laden issue, and that's the invisible threat that we don't see on the planet, is the chemicals that are being left behind from the raw materials extraction through the production, through the disposal and the dumping, and ultimately the incineration. I want to just quickly highlight that the UN Oceans Conference opening had the Australian Environment Minister, and to my complete dismay, the head of Veolia. Veolia is one of the biggest incineration corporations on the planet. Veolia was on the opening panel discussion how they have plans to develop innovative technologies to recycle plastic and capture that plastic, a waste disposal company. In Australia, what makes waste trade a concern is when we look at what Australia did. Australia was a world-leading announcement, the waste export ban from Australia. It was very exciting. It was a world first. But what does that really mean? What it means in Australia is that when we're talking about the plastic waste trade, we're talking about the fact that in Australia now you cannot export plastic unless it's a single polymer or process engineered fuel. So where organisations in that we worked with in Indonesia, Malaysia and the Philippines on a project with the International Pollutants Elimination Network was to look at Australia's policy direction in this area and what the impacts were like in the receiving Asia Pacific countries. What we found was that there is a huge policy and regulatory and legislative agenda to rebrand Australia's waste as a fuel and continue to export that. Turning waste into a commodity, into a product, makes it easier to trade. But this is a stealthy approach to waste trade and waste management that needs to be exposed. And it's very significant amounts of money going into this in Australia, $10 to energise the resource recovery sector. So it concerns me when I see Veolia on the opening panel, because the growth in the refuse-derived fuel industry is quite in lockstep with the push for incineration industries into the Asia-Pacific region. And we're seeing that Australia is going to play a major role in that, and it will come to these Asia-Pacific countries as aid and support.
Can I just play devil's advocate and ask, we need fuel, we need energy, so what's wrong with exporting plastic waste to be burned?
Okay, well, burning plastic waste is one of the most polluting and expensive ways to make energy. And you're burning a highly complex mixture of chemicals that's contained in the waste. So the refuse-derived fuel isn't, well, firstly, let's acknowledge that refuse-derived fuel does not have a waste trade code. So there's no way to really be tracking, monitoring and measuring how much refuse-derived fuel is being shipped around, because there isn't even a code for it in the harmonised trade code system. So refuse-derived fuel is pretty much residual waste, which we know contains high levels of plastics, single-use plastics, non-recyclable plastics. And why are plastics non-recyclable? Because they're multi-layered, they're composite materials, they're full of chemicals. So residual refuse-derived fuel is basically just residual waste, which is compressed into pellets and used as fuel. It's the most dirty and expensive way to generate energy and manage waste. And the air pollution profile, when you compare it to other fuels like coal, oil and gas, is significantly higher in heavy metals and a whole range of other toxic pollutants. We should be very concerned about the pollution that comes from burning refuse-derived fuel, because we know that it generates persistent organic pollutants, forever chemicals. And these are chemicals that go into the ocean, they contaminate the marine food chain, they violate the human rights of Indigenous peoples the world over. And this is what we can see is about to escalate globally.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Jane. Okay, that's a lot to take in.
Sorry, I was a bit blunt there, but sometimes you have to be a bit blunt.
No, feel free. It's an open space. But yeah, we're still talking about how exporting countries are still passing on the environmental impacts of burning and of plastic waste disposal on importing countries. They burn their refuse here, where we have lower environmental standards and absolutely no standard to measure dioxins. But in the end, the plastic waste trade also harms people in exporting countries as well. So we have a video clip, a next clip that shows how negatively impacts people in the global north.
What is TerraCycle? And why is this clean, neatly sorted material from the UK supposedly being burned in Bulgaria? We decide to track down Alison Harding.
I'm the recycling lady of Shaftesbury, or my property is the recycling place of Shaftesbury. I ask all local residents to come and drop off their collectible recycling into the selected bins. So this is the crisp packets. You can see it's overflowing. We have our personal hygiene, we have our confectionery, pet food, bread bags, cleaning produce.
Instead of putting this material in the normal recycling bin, where it will typically be burned or even landfilled, people bring it to Alison. She runs one of the thousands of volunteer collection points in over 20 countries, set up by TerraCycle. The rapidly growing company says it can recycle anything.
You know, I do this all for free in my own time, because everything does help in the future for all of us.
And so what does all this become?
So when it gets to TerraCycle, they do all the magic. So they're going to take the bread bag, they're going to melt it all down, shred it all up into little pieces, and then make it into their product. So whether it be the soap dish or whether it go into the watering can.
Each TerraCycle program is sponsored and paid for by a different brand. This allows them to print the logo on their packaging. But what's the story behind this remarkable business?
Tom Sackey, the founder and CEO of TerraCycle, has got a new solution for all of that waste. I love this, man. You get so smart.
TerraCycle was founded by Princeton dropout Tom Sackey. and has been hyped by the media.
The goal of TerraCycle is really to eliminate the idea of waste. One of the tricks to garbage is don't think of it as garbage. It's just another raw material. Things that have never been done before. Any form of waste can be recycled. Crisp bags can also be melted into this granule, and then that could be made into something like this, which is a dog bowl. So far, we have found that everything in the world is technically recyclable.
Tom Saki has signed deals with most of the biggest consumer goods brands on Earth. As pressure rises from consumers for green options, brands pay TerraCycle to collect their material, and then they can claim their packages are really recyclable after all.
You know, we're now able to recycle cosmetic waste through your generous support at Garnier.
Garnier is proud to have partnered with TerraCycle.
Walkers has launched the nation's first crisp packet recycling scheme. All you have to do is save your crisp packets.
Just collect your empty packs of Johnson's baby wipes and send your packs to our friends at TerraCycle.
So why then did we find Alison's packaging in Bulgaria?
Alison, one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you today is because we actually have some stuff that belongs to you. Actually, we found this material.
Right.
And I would just like to, I'd be curious if you recognise it.
Ooh, I'll tell you. It's all crisp packets. This is all what I collect for TerraCycle?
That is actually material you did collect.
I did collect.
Yes.
Is it?
It had your name on it. We found a parcel that you sent, and unfortunately, I have to say we found it in Bulgaria.
No. No way.
Yes.
It's all meant to be recycled in the UK. I can't believe that. That's quite heartbreaking. I'm saving my time, and I'm sure everyone will be devastated in the Shaftesbury neighbouring areas and those who do collect, because it makes you question, why am I doing it? And I'm doing it to hopefully protect the future. It feels really weird having it back on my dining room table, yeah. And there's my name and address. This is one of my boxes, crisps. You see, that's my writing, crisps, 5.25 kilos in that box. I can't believe a company would do this. And I'm just, why? You know, they're not sticking to their word. I'd love to know what their CEOs say, basically. I'm really stuck for words.
Tom Saki often talks to the media. We make an appointment to sit down with him.
Do you want me to sign this? Sounds good. We work today with just about every major consumer product company. So from Nestle to P&G, Unilever, Kraft Heinz, and hundreds of others. We have about 40,000 different customers, but just about every big brand you can imagine works with us somewhere.
40,000?
Yes.
I got some pictures for you.
Yes.
Okay, to see what's next, what happened next, what the boss of TerraCycle says, what his response was, please watch the film. The link and the password has been sent to you when you registered for this. Now we'll move on to our next speaker, Jen Dell from the US. We saw that people know that plastics is dangerous. It's toxic. There's additives. It disrupts our endocrine system. It's killing marine animals. Every other day there's a turtle or a whale washed up. We have microplastics in our blood. But there's one question in the chat, so I'm just going to pose it to Jen now. Are all plastics bad? Number one. And number two, why do you, so that they say that all plastics are recyclable. Is that true? Is that not true? What's your take on this?
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Well, hello from Laguna Beach, California. It's nice and early here. The sun is starting to come up. And I am honored to be with this group of people today. We are all connected on a global WhatsApp chat to fight plastic pollution. In fact, to fight plastic pollution via exports. And we all work virtually together and actually have never met. But we've made real progress, which shows that it can be done, that a small group of people can accomplish something. I'd like to open by saying one thing. There's one takeaway message, and that is the circular economy of plastics is the greatest greenwashing hoax of all time. Corporations are lying to us. Plastic has never been recyclable. It will never be recyclable. It is not like paper or metal or glass. The very nature of plastic makes it toxic and not recyclable. I'm a chemical engineer. I spent 35 years working around the world in 45 countries for the very companies that make the polyethylene and the polypropylene, then turn it into a cup and sell it at a fast food store. I've worked for all of those companies. And in 2018, when I saw the explosion of new plastic coming onto the planet and the lies being told by the plastics industry that all this was collectible and recyclable, I decided to leave my corporate career and found my own little NGO called the Last Beach Cleanup and bring my chemical engineering skills to help bring the truth to the situation and stop this massive amount of plastic pollution, which is flooding and choking our planet. So the key message is plastic is not recyclable and we are being lied to. The example, I think the epitome, symbolic example of this is the TerraCycle program. I sued TerraCycle because of their labels in the United States. And that's shown in the video. Just to let you know, when I sue in the United States, I don't get any money. I don't ask for any money. I simply ask for changes to be made, right? My lawyer, who is a public interest lawyer, gets paid back for his time when we win. And we did win. And I'm going to show you the example of how TerraCycle and the product companies were lying to us in the United States. We won that case in the United States. I believe it's indicative of what's happening around the world. But then it's symbolic of others. I'm going to give you others examples as well. Again, the takeaway message is we are being lied to every minute of every day by the product companies, the NGOs that they fund, the magic chemical recycling that may happen sometime in the future, and it is not recyclable. The sooner we all accept that fact, the sooner we can move to reusable systems and improve fiber and other packaging, which actually are okay for the planet. So this is kind of exciting. And Puyi, you'll have to cut me off when my time's up because I can keep going on this topic. So this is what made me really mad. When I started in 2018 and I started looking at all the products on the shelves in the United States, I started seeing everything labeled as recyclable. Here, this McDonald's plastic cup has a recycle symbol on it. It tells people, oh yeah, you can use it, put it in your recycle bin. It's a complete lie. The US EPA reports no plastic cups are recyclable, okay? There is no factory collecting plastic cups in the United States and recycling these things into anything. But this label that I saw at the very beginning on things like this chip bag, this Late July chip bag up here in the corner, it had this big word, recyclable with TerraCycle. And then there were all these other products that were totally unrecyclable. that had this. And I thought, okay, who has this magic factory? It's kind of funny that Allison in that video says, oh, then they go and do their magic. Well, I'm a chemical engineer and I've been to a lot of factories and I know there was no magic factory doing this, right? But I went on their website and they claimed in some cases 100% was recycled, which is not true for anything. And then in other cases, 97% was recyclable, which is also not true for anything. And so I contacted a lawyer about that, and he goes, yeah, that's going to be hard to prove, you know. But then what I found out was, oh, it says recyclable on these. These millions of these are put in stores around the United States. Oh, recyclable, TerraCycle. Here, all you have to do is go onto their website, log in, and you'll get a free label to put all the stuff in a box and ship it from California way back to New Jersey, which the carbon footprint is so stupid anyway. But when I went to do that, I was put on a wait list. Oh, wait, I couldn't do it for free. And then I went on Reddit and I saw people had been waiting years, even though this says it's recyclable, to send it back. That is illegal in the United States. You cannot offer something to the public that says this is available for everyone now and then put a limitation on it. So we contacted TerraCycle and 8 huge product companies. Campbell Soup owns this one, late July. We contacted them in December to 2020, and they initially just blew us off. Oh, TerraCycle said, oh, we like the environment too, you know, go away. I'm like, wait a second, you know, this isn't legal. And eventually we won the case and settled. That's what happens in agreement. And they agreed to change their labels and to not claim anything is 100% recyclable. Now, I still see Mr. Zaki claiming that in videos and so on, but it's in the press or on a product. He's not allowed to claim that. In fact, the product companies have just changed. I'll finish up with this now. This is the new package that is now being sold. See, it actually says new look. They took off the big word recyclable. This is a minor symbolic victory to show what we can do when we push for the truth. To tie this all back into plastic sports, it's just a way to pretend stuff's recyclable. Unfortunately, here in California, we're the worst waste imperialists. We ship all our stuff back. We pretend it's recycled. We pat ourselves on the back, and the government looks the other way. And we have absolutely got to stop this. We wrote to CMA CGM. They said, we agree. The CEO and his family is an honorable family. They are not contributing to plastic pollution. And we have to demand that all the other shipping companies too. We stop the ships, we stop the plastic waste. And with that, I thank you for the opportunity to talk. The last question was, should we ban all plastic? Of course not. We need some plastic for medical. There's some very good uses for plastic. Of course, no one wants to ban all plastic. But all of this stuff, this plastic wrapper that's on a snack bar that they pretend is recyclable, and these things that end up in Indonesia next to pulp mills, of course they should be made out of something else or reusables. Of course they should be made out of paper, and that's what we have to demand. So thanks very much for everybody for letting me to tell you the story.
Thanks, Jen. I wish I have more time to sit here and ask you more questions, but unfortunately the clock is ticking. Let's move on to our last speaker first before I will open up the floor. And for people sending in their questions, do indicate which speaker, I'm sorry I should have said this earlier, but do indicate which speaker you hope to pose the question to, and we'll try to squeeze you all in. So yeah, everything is recyclable. My government told me that. Politicians, when I was doing my research on the plastic waste imports, they said, oh, everything is recyclable, that's why we accept all the plastic waste imports. And then we see everything dumped beside our river. And when I was doing my research, I was also looking into illegality and crime, criminal syndicates who were moving these plastic waste. I heard a lot of stories. I unfortunately did not have the chance to speak with anyone who was involved in the criminal syndicates. I didn't speak to a smuggler. I spoke to people who spoke to the others. But now let's move on to filmmaker Benedict Monter. And my question for Benedict is, your documentary highlighted a lot of the dark sides of this waste trade, this plastic waste trade. Can you share with us, is it just a small percentage of the waste trade that is shadowy? How serious is this problem of criminal networks in being involved in the trade of plastic waste? What did you see how did you do your research when you were making the film?
Yeah, hi everybody. I hope you can hear me properly as well. And good to see that Jandel is on fire at 5 in the morning in the US. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for featuring the recycling myth. Yeah, great to have the opportunity to talk to you today. I will answer shortly to your question, like how we did this investigation on criminal broker networks and maybe a bit of trivia about people involved and stuff like that. But generally, I would like to say the purpose of the recycling myth of the documentary is to show that recycling is not what the public believes or what it's actually standing for. We have to be fair though, some plastic gets recycled, like PET bottles turning into new PET bottles or into a running shirt. Your shampoo HDPE bottle might become a new shampoo bottle. But this is definitely somewhere in a lower 1% range. And then we enter a world of downcycling of applications that are more or less useful and that also come at a cost. And also for this film, we investigated on cement industries a lot. I had a focus on that for a couple of years, looked deeply into it besides EPR. And so the purpose of the recycling myth is to actually show that it is sometimes a myth. And all this criminal networks, or this basically like a consequence or an outcome of bad plastics that have been put on the market. In the industries, they call it shit in, shit out at a sorting line, at a MRF, meaning that a huge stake of the material goes in and just goes out as a sorting rest, as a polyolefin mix. And this is problematic material for us here to recover in the Western world. And then there is obviously a demand economically due to capacity, but also due to the costs simply to ship this material around the globe, as we have heard from various panelists before. What we did is we installed a small website and we did business cards and we got a phone. So what we did is we appeared as brokers ourselves and looked a bit onto the spot market. I also conducted some investigations. I found sources who did this for some years and who told the team how waste shipping is actually happening. It sounds a bit complex in the beginning, but in the end, and that is also what we revealed with this investigation, it is actually quite an easy thing to smuggle material around the globe. I want to also say that industries tell us this is a black sheep syndrome. There are always some, let's say, criminals involved in the supply chain, versus Interpol and Olaf and Europol telling us it is a multi-billion US dollar market. So that doesn't add up. And that is confusing. There must be a structural problem. We as experts know that. And yeah, I hope I answered your first question. It was a bit of a, yeah, pick me up, boy.
No worries. If you could just elaborate on the point, the Interpol, and I'll say it's a multi-billion dollar, you're talking about the black market for plastic waste?
Yes. Well, there is a black market for plastic waste. There is a black market for all kinds of different waste materials. It is brokerage networks, people who are connecting the dots between, let's say, the first world of waste and the third world of waste, and installing a bit of a colonial waste system. So these people, not everybody is a organized crime a group, or not everybody is a fully criminal broker. Some of them have a legit business, apparently, and they do comply with rules, but it's obviously very difficult to maintain a clean slate, so to say, to maintain a proper business. So this is what we definitely experienced. Besides the fact that, yes, if you go into a country like Bulgaria, which we did, and you talk to these people, of course, there is bribery involved. The sensitivity generally towards waste disposal and plastics is lower, like the environmental awareness is lower than in first world countries. If we talk to brokers in Turkey, they take into account that material at some point might get leaked. And we also have to talk about, it is not only about bill of lading and about cheating on the actual loading, but it is also about cheating on capacities, on certification schemes for capacity in third world countries. For example, me as a German, every facility we want to send our waste to, which is about every fifth package we use, 20%, goes into other EU countries, and then a part of that goes also to third world countries. We need to certify these facilities we want to send our waste to, and these facilities sometimes get a higher capacity license than they actually have. That is also a problem that is occurring. So I want to raise that point. There's something behind what you can see in the Recycling Myth documentary. Yes, so these were some of the experiences, and well, it's not only organized crime groups and illegal shipments, it's illegitimate shipments. It is also sometimes legal shipments happening. The point is, every ton that gets exported is hindering a local ton from being collected and somehow recovered. So that has to be fixed. That is a message definitely beyond a bit of the recycling myth. The recycling myth should open the eye to consumers in Western worlds mostly, but also to decision makers and brands who deploy this material in third world countries, which is another problem.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to open the floor. We have all the panelists in the room. I wish we could do this live. Someday, all of us will meet and we can talk waste trade live, and hopefully everyone will be talking about the waste trade together with us and the need to stop it. I'm going to go back to Sedat. There's a question for Sedat in the chat. Is there a chance that the new Global Plastics Treaty will ban the waste trade? And I'm going to add on to that question. If waste trade is banned, what do you foresee will happen in exporting countries or in your own country? Let's envision a world where waste trade is banned. What can we hope for?
Well,
questions.
The treaty has potential to set new rules on this waste trade, but it depends how we provide scientific evidence and the effect on the environment and ecosystem, and also local waste management issue. Because just an example for Turkey collects only 10% of its plastic waste that generated in municipal operations, but the number of the amount of the tons of the plastic waste that the country import is almost 3 times higher than the country's own collected plastic waste. That's the issue. If we succeed to ban plastic waste import to the country, then we will try to get our own waste to collect our own waste in our own source, and then we can build new strategy to decrease the waste, plastic waste that we generated. So we also have the kind of a label that Turkey is one of the most polluted country in the Mediterranean region. So we have to change this. This can only be with the total ban of the plastic waste import, because all these recycling facilities operating on this plastic waste import, generating billions of microplastic and release to the environment, blocking wastewater treatment system, and also polluting rivers and the terrestrial environment. So that will be the main effect of the ban. But the treaty has potential, but there is also another side of the problem, the industry pressure. But you know, now all the evidences in our science and the environmental justice side. So we are more powerful than before because we have so many evidence on this toxic effect on the waste rate and also microplastic contribution to the marine environment.
So I'm just going to take random questions from the Q&A box and ask any speaker to answer it. What are your thoughts about developed countries importing plastic waste? What are your thoughts about developed countries importing plastic waste post-sorting, label removing, and bailing from developing countries? So I think I would like to ask that to Jen. So let's say that developed country, they export the waste and then it's sort, remove, label, and built in the developing countries and then sent back to developed countries. I think that's the question. I don't quite understand it. Do you? You don't understand? Okay,
there's nothing good about exporting plastic waste and saying some other country should recycle it. If this bottle isn't recyclable in the United States, it's not recyclable anywhere. What we're doing by putting all types of plastic waste together and exporting it is outsourcing the pollution, okay? There is nothing clean or green about recycling plastic waste. Studies from Vietnam are now showing that microplastics are generated when these things are ground up. No surprise, those end up in the water and they're discharged. It takes a lot of fresh water to mechanically recycle all this plastic. Unfortunately, there was a question about Mexico. California is now flooding Mexico with our plastic waste because it's harder and harder to ship it to Asia, which is good. We've won that. CMA CGM's not loading ships in Long Beach to go to Port Klang anymore, Malaysia. But now what are the product companies doing and the recyclers who want to pretend this is recyclable? They're putting it in trucks and sending it down to Mexico where there's zero transparency. Poor environmental laws, poor age, wage, safety, labor laws about what happens to it down there. Okay, and so then it gets to Mexico. Guess what? Mexico also has no water. In California, we have no water, okay? Everything is brown. We're not even allowed to water our plants outside anymore. It takes 10 pounds of fresh water per pound of plastic to mechanically recycle it. Okay, this is a huge amount of fresh water, so they're shipping it to Mexico where business people can get the water rights and steal it away from people who need the water, right? Because there's no governance around water, and try to make a profit doing it there. There was a question about, in fact, speaking of Mexico, about the 30% waste that I mentioned. The latest news, state-of-the-art plant invented by Coca-Cola down in Mexico flat out says it has a 30% waste rate. So our bottles from California go down with a bunch of other contamination, and the trash ends up in Mexico in a dump, in an open landfill. And yes, Mexico has a high plastic pollution rate. So the story is, if it's not recyclable in the country who makes it, it's not recyclable. It is unethical to say you can ship it to some country that has no environmental laws, can steal the fresh water from people, and can dump the waste, and they can recycle it.
Okay, thanks, Jen. I'm going to move on to Jane. I'm sorry, this question is targeted at Jen, but I would like to pose it to Jane so that we spread out the answering of the questions. This question is about plastic waste. If you ban plastic waste exports, then it's in conflict with circular economy model, circular economy plan. So circular economy, you need economies of scale. So you need to group certain types of plastics in certain places for it to be recycled. So the argument by industry is that we want to encourage circular economy. We want to encourage the recycling of plastics. So we need the plastics to move. What's your take on that?
My take on that is very simply that this idea of a plastic circular economy is another myth. We're talking about materials that can't be recycled. That is the whole premise of this great movie that we're meeting about, the recycling myth. I think I want to reiterate that waste problems cannot be solved at the waste end of the problem. Once you're dealing with a waste, you've failed. So when it comes to plastic, you know, I think the scale of the plastic pollution problem, which is beyond the ocean, which is planetary now, requires some really strong action, and we have to recognise and act quickly to cap production. We cannot continue to be producing plastic at the rates and the increases that industry is telling us they're going to increase volumes, while the planet is choking to death on plastic. It's nonsensical. So we have to cap production. And then we have to recognise that what's driving the problem of plastic recycling, and that is it's not recyclable because it's made in such a way, it's inherently full of toxic and hazardous materials. So we have to redesign plastic. We have to remove the toxins in the process. We have to redesign for circularity. And let's not forget, you can't have a circular economy if you don't have a bona fide zero waste system behind it. Zero waste policy is the backbone of a circular economy. So we have to uphold the principles of zero waste. And we really can't have a circular plastics economy currently with how we make and use plastic. We need to go right back to the basics, cap production, eliminate toxics, redesign for circularity, and start to build a circular economy based around the principles of zero waste systems. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thanks. To add on, circular economy principles are based on circularity and not linear models of production, and plastics is, as Jen has said, inherently linear. Okay, moving on to Daru, are you here with us? Picking up from Jane's, Daru? Oh, I think her connection maybe, you're on mute. Okay, maybe her connection may be a bit weak. Never mind, it's okay. I'll move
Hello,
on.
hello. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right. Picking up from what Jane said just now about zero waste models. So I know that you do some work regarding zero waste. What is this zero waste model? What alternatives does it present us? And there's also a question about material recovery facilities. Is it good? Is it bad? What should waste management look like moving forward? If we are saying that we want to ban plastic waste, we need to reduce plastic, we need to slowly phase out plastic.
Yeah.
Zero waste is an option. What is zero waste?
Yeah, so I think we need to ban global plastic waste shipment, because yeah, it's not fair, it's waste colonialism, it also rob the salary and the health of the local recycler workers in local communities. So if we can implement a ban, then the importer countries can encourage to improve the local waste management system, through zero waste cities program. So in zero waste city, we encourage government to provide decentralized waste management infrastructure. So in every village, they should have the segregated waste collection system and a compost house and a material recovery facility. But in the upstream, like the previous speaker said, we also need regulation to ban the toxic chemicals that are being used to produce plastic, and to push the producers to replace single-use plastic with reusable, refillable materials. So we have to work in the upstream, in the downstream. So zero waste city program is in the downstream. When we already produce waste, we need to enforce government to push all the households to segregate their waste at source. Yeah, at least they can segregate into two category: organic and unorganic or recyclable. So we get cleaner recyclable, so it can be processed in better and more efficient. We can reduce the water use also for recycling the plastic that we cannot avoid.
Okay, thanks, Darul, for sharing about zero waste cities. I have some questions for Benedict, but let's sort out all these zero waste cities and recycling and for solutions, real solutions issues first. Then I'll go back to Benedict. There's a question here. Could you please comment on news about fuel from plastic bottles through pyrolysis? And Jen has replied to that, but can I just invite Jen to reply verbally about pyrolysis, about all these new technologies that the industry says that they can use to deal with these plastic waste. What do you think about that? And also, is there any country that has a good waste management, plastic management system? So two questions.
The pyrolysis question was for me. Okay. The chemical industry has been promoting advanced chemical recycling solutions since 1994. I found an article from 1993. That's before many of you were born. Okay, there is nothing new about pyrolysis. This is every time the world gets worried about plastic waste and pollution, the plastics industry trots out this new advanced technology that never has worked. The key thing to know about pyrolysis and gasification are that they burn plastic waste. Their primary intent is actually to burn the waste, make a lot of it go away so that we have to buy new plastic instead. So they lock us in to new plastic. What they do essentially, both of the processes, you put the plastic waste in vessels and you have to heat it up to like 400 to 800 degrees C, and then the hydrocarbons gasify off. Well, to keep it that hot, you have to take the hydrocarbons and combust them and keep the kettle burning, right? And so this burns at least half of the plastic, right? And that's a number one fallacy. Number two is they can't use it for mixed plastic waste. That is a complete fallacy. Joe Brock at Reuters did a great article about how Renewlogy in Salt Lake City shut down because of contamination. Pyrolysis can have no PET and no PVC in it, but all household waste has it. So right now, you know what they're starting to do? This is the latest hoax, everybody. They're doing pyrolysis of industrial plastic scrap, right? Clean scrap. And they're turning it into pyrolysis oil, sending it to a polypropylene big refinery, feeding a tiny amount, a magical tiny amount in, and then making a polypropylene cup with recycled content. And they're literally putting images of, oh, this cup going from the fast food back and around. No, completely fake. And so pyrolysis has never worked. It won't work on mixed plastic. It has limited available working on industrial scrap, but we don't need it for that. And this is just another distraction. And then the second question, I'll let somebody else answer.
Which country has the best imported plastic waste management? That's a very interesting question, because imported plastic waste management, why do you want to manage imported plastic instead of your own plastic? But does any panelists want to feedback on that? Anyone? Any speakers? No? No? Then okay, I'll just quickly, briefly refer her to, maybe not best imported plastic waste management, but I'll refer her to what Bahrain said yesterday at the dialogue on addressing plastic waste, Bahrain said that they banned the import of plastic waste. They calculated how much of their waste was plastics, and then they worked towards reducing that plastic waste and creating alternative materials. Now I want to come to this question of alternative materials. There's a lot of talk about bioplastic, oxo-degradable plastic, compostable plastics. Does any of our speakers have anything to add about these type of plastics? Are they good? Are they bad? Anyone?
Yeah, well, last week I've been in the radio a lot, and people have been left behind with the idea that all their waste sorting in general is not really helpful. And I always said we Germans might be the world champions in waste sorting, but should be the world champions in waste avoidance, in plastic waste and packaging avoidance. And that leads me to the answer that yes, maybe some sort of biosourced material and biodegradable material can be a part of a solution, but generally the best packaging is the one that is not used. So there is always a bit of a problem behind that it might get used for some sort of greenwash in that case. I know that some other panelists here advocate for paper and cardboard. Yeah, might be has a higher recycling rate, might be better to recover, but also energy efficient, energy intensive. So there is always a bit of pro and con, and I think everybody needs to open the eyes when they go shopping and go to supermarkets and try to simply avoid material.
Okay, thanks. We're running a bit out of time, so I'm sorry I can't go through all the questions, but there are many interesting suggestions in the chat that I hope that everyone can read, and the questions, can the audience read the questions? Just to check. There's some very interesting comments there about how all countries should manage their own waste. Now I'm going to just give every speaker 1 minute just to, or 30 seconds, just to quickly sum up. Number one, why do you think this is such a serious issue to address plastic pollution? And number two, why we need to stop the waste trade? So I will just start following the sequence as just now. Sadat, would you like to go first, just to wrap up? Is why do you think plastic pollution is such a serious issue? All of us are clearly very angry about the plastic pollution issue, and we feel like stopping the waste trade and reducing plastics completely, reducing single-use plastics, getting rid of single-use packaging material, unnecessary material is important. Why? What motivates you, number one? And number two, why do you think waste trade should be stopped? And reducing plastics completely, reducing single-use plastics, getting rid of single-use packaging material, unnecessary material is important. Why? What motivates you, number one? And number two, why do you think waste trade should be stopped?
Well, we made a mistake on plastic. You know, this is really huge mistake, and then we have to solve this problem because, you know, the plastics invading our environment, in marine environment, terrestrial environment, and invade all our lifestyle. And you know, it's just we are not controlling plastics. Actually, plastics are controlling our lifestyle. So we are all transforming all of our living style according to type of plastic. So that's the issue. Plastic is everywhere, and this is a problem because there is no single solution to tackle this problem. Bioplastics or biodegradable plastics, compostable plastics, that's are not solution because the style, the living style, consumption culture is itself are wrong. So that's the issue. And the second one, you know, each country has to deal with their own waste. You know, if a plastic, as John mentioned, if a plastic recyclable, then recycle it in original country. Is sending this plastic waste to the other countries which don't have effective waste management. That's not fair. It's type of colonialism.
Thank you. Next, Daru. Daru?
Okay. Why we have to prevent plastic pollution? Because plastic contain a lot of toxic additive, yeah. So there's also dioxins and phthalate, BPA, PCB, PFAS, and all of that are linked to cancer, brain damage, and infertility. And it already poisons our air, soil, food, and our body. So the plastic waste contaminated our food chain with dioxin, as resulted by the mismanage of plastic waste import from a rich country in our village. So that's why we need a global ban on plastic waste shipment, because it leads to illegal dumping. It's poisoning our environment and health with toxic hormone disruptors, and even adding more plastic waste leakage into our rivers and our ocean. And at the end, it will kill the marine wildlife in the receiving country. So the solution for ocean plastic pollution is clear. Yeah, we need to end subsidy for fossil fuel energy to reduce the volume of plastic that will be produced, and we need more investment for the safer and more sustainable alternative, and hold the plastic makers financially responsible to the harm of the plastic pollution they created. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Jane. Sorry, we're running a bit over time, but let's go. Let's finish this up.
Look, I think plastic represents carbon and chemicals, and I think that the world is finally waking up to the global climate threat. Now is not the time to be burning plastic, and my concern is that plastic waste shipments will see a rise in incredible amounts of greenhouse gases as a result of burning plastic. It also raises deep colonialist issues of the receiving countries not having the regulation or the systems or the technologies to be able to safely recycle. So it's an environmental justice issue. And then there is the issues of the chemical threats, the invisible threats of chemicals that are inherently connected to plastics. So we're at a point in time when we really can't afford to burn plastic as a fuel when we're facing such catastrophic climate threats. And that's what's coming under the guise of plastic recycling. And what we're hearing from most OECD countries in industry is their preferred option is going to be turning plastic into a fuel to burn. It's the next huge climate bomb.
Okay, thank you. That is indeed worrying. Next, Jen.
Thanks again for letting me talk to everybody today. It's a pleasure to work with you all. I have one message to everyone. We can change this. We have the truth and the facts on our side. Never estimate, as a friend of mine says, the power of one little mosquito in a room to cause change. Okay? We can all do this. We know the truth. Plastic is not recyclable. It's toxic waste. It should not be put on ships and sent to other countries. We can demand change, and we all can make a difference. Let's all network together, and we have made a difference, and we can stop this right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And Benedict? So you are the only one who has not been working on plastics, like in that you're a filmmaker. So that's why.
Yeah,
why
you know,
did you work on plastics?
Yeah, we could have done the same documentary or a similar one probably 30 years ago when extended producer responsibility started to spread across European countries. Not much has changed. There is more waste, and also waste shipments have a long history, as I found out, like even before the 90s, before EPR. Some of the EPR systems were like waste exporting brokers before. So that all has a long history. So something needs to change. For me personally, as a journalist, I don't want to advocate for a specific ban or not. I think the discussion is more about global supply chains. Is it really useful to have a tennis ball that has been traveling to the moon and back before it hits the court? Is it useful to source PET from third world countries because the EU wants maintain recycling quotas, and companies are sourcing this material now from all around the globe? So I think it is a discussion around that. We need smart solutions in every country, and usually local supply chains, local feedstock is beating plastic pollution. So that's my message.
Thank you everyone for your messages. Just to quickly sum up, I think it's clear that exporting waste in the guise of recycling and then burning it, pyrolysis, turning it into fuel and burning even more, it allows us to create ever more plastics. And as long as we create more plastics, we will need to recycle more. As long as we recycle more, there will be more residual waste, there will be more microplastic pollution in the ocean, and the problem will never be solved. We need to tackle it at the source, we need to tackle it at production. We need to stop making so much plastics and unnecessary plastics. And this whole UN Ocean Conference talks about science-based solutions to marine plastic pollution. I think a very important element, a very important point that this panel has highlighted is that we don't just need science-based solutions, we need human rights-based approaches. It has to be centered around people, communities. Zero waste models are participatory, they are ground up. We need to think about people, we need to think about nature if we really want to address the physical threats that's facing the Earth. And with this, I would like to move on to the last slide and pitch our petition again. We have this petition to call for shipping lines to stop shipping waste. We have our Danish friends, Plastic Change Denmark also has a Danish petition to pressure Maersk in particular. As an importing country, stopping plastic waste imports to my country is important for me. For others, like Benedict, it can be a point of discussion, but let's keep talking about waste trade and whether we really need it or not. And I thank everyone for joining us. Thank you for staying with us, although we've exceeded time for a little bit. I would like to thank EEB, Geneva Environment Network, and everyone, all our speakers. Thank you and have a good night, afternoon, evening. I just wanted to highlight what was mentioned here in the chat. Maybe we should call for a ban of shipping for all single-use unnecessary plastic items. Yeah, that would be great. If you make single-use plastic, you deal with it in your own country.